Hello, everyone. My name is Christine, and I'm here with Kristen, and this is our 24th episode of a show we call Walking the Path, really exploring what's going on in our lives, what we're noticing in the collective, and how we can best move through times of change and uncertainty and transformation and step into greater love and authenticity, care for self, care for others, and really give our attention to what can grow something beautiful. And definitely feels like a time where there's a lot of directions our attention can go, and it will really affect how we feel and how we perceive ourselves, our life, and the future, even of the whole species. So welcome, Kristen. I'm so happy that you're here with me today.
Thank you. I'm so happy that we're having this conversation today. It feels like things in the collective energy field have gone up a few notches toward, like a vibration of anxiety that's growing, at least here in Canada. And I'm really sensing that. And I find for me personally, whenever I'm sensing that, it means I need to up my level of inner calm and groundedness. And I'm kind of going like, how many more notches can I take this up for myself to remain calm and grounded when I'm sensing anxiety and fear in the field in a pretty big way? So that's what I've been sitting with this morning. And I think I was just sharing, I was part of a Gene Keys call yesterday, and there's this concept that, shadows / fear, all forms of fear, can be so addictive. And I'm really seeing that addiction being kind of preyed upon in our world right now. And, if one is looking for fear, it's pretty much everywhere right now. I think really what I wanted to touch on today was, being aware of what's going on in the world and in our communities, and choosing to either be a part of the fear or be a part of the antidote, which, is love in all of its forms: compassion, kindness, patience. And so I thought maybe we could talk about that and kind of throw some ideas around, maybe offer some tips to anyone who's listening.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so important. I appreciate the Gene Keys just for naming all these different shadows and then what they can show up as in the frequency of the gift, or as love is available, right? How it can be transformed. Yeah, because I think there can be a tendency to push fear away or try to push people in fear away to have a sense of calm or peace. And obviously that creates more division and separation, and it doesn't lead to collective healing. And so this art is, how do we care for ourselves, be grounded, be connected, be, in our hearts with a clear mind, and balanced as possible body in communion with nature and the earth, and show up to relationship. And what do we do when someone is spiraling into fear and then wants to pull us into that, or play the shadow game of, the shadow of opinion meets the shadow of judgment meets the shadow of addiction meets the shadow of, and it just entropy, and it just keeps spiraling, spinning and playing. And then so quickly our whole nervous system can become imbalanced, charged up, and then you have anger and all those other things swirling, or even blame on, I felt good until you came along, and deal with yourself, like just all these ways that it seems like we just get to face ourselves and really face relationships and become curious about how we can bring these qualities of love into relationship in a time where it's so easy for anyone to just pick up that fear frequency and run on it and get it spinning in the mind, and then translating through the emotions, and then expressing through the body, and then even being near someone in that state can throw us off because we're sensitive, intuitive, and it's just because it's part of our capacity for intimacy, which goes haywire when we're in a vibration of fear. So what would you say are some things that maybe have helped you when you're stepping into a relationship with someone who is spiraling in that frequency, to be with them without kind of becoming that same fear frequency?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's something I've been getting a lot of practice with, this whole year. Um, and probably my whole life, but it feels like next level challenging for me personally this year. And one thing I've discovered recently, maybe rediscovered, or that it's become way more powerful of a tool for me, is listening when someone's sharing something and they are clearly in a space of fear and anxiety, and just really listening and not having the need to agree or disagree with what someone is saying, but just being a witness, and saying something such as, thanks for sharing that, I'll consider it, or something. It doesn't, you're kind of neutralizing any charge that's coming with the energy or the expression of what someone else is sharing. And just simply smiling. I was saying earlier, like, just making eye contact these days is a really big deal. It's really easy to be out in public right now too. I went out in our community yesterday, took a lot of deep breaths and worked myself, into a place of as grounded as I could be. And I went to the post office and the pharmacy to grab some different things in the grocery store. And I I did a couple of things that were really interesting for me yesterday. But one thing was I really focused on eye contact with people. In the province of BC where we all live, masks are now made mandatory for the time being. And I really struggle with that because I don't think that's the solution personally to the issues at hand. But I was feeling pretty bewildered and confused before I left the house yesterday. And honestly, all I have is some disposable blue medical grade, whatever those masks are. And I said to Tanner, I feel like I'm being untrue to myself by putting one of these on and going out because I don't believe that this is the solution, and I don't believe it's protecting me or anyone else. And so Tanner goes, well, why don't you take a Sharpie and write how you really feel on the front of the mask? And that way you're not breaking any rules and you're still saying how you feel. So I've got a few phrases in mind, and I put one on the mask yesterday. And it said, fear is the virus. And a lot of people looked at me like I was cuckoo yesterday, but a few people looked at me like, I know what you're saying. And I thought I could have done better. When I got home, I thought, what would have been better for me is, and it's tricky to write on those things in a way where it's readable, let me tell you. But I should have written, and I will write next time, fear is the virus, love is the cure. Because I only wrote half of what I was feeling, but I was feeling pretty frustrated about everything. So yeah, I think, meeting the world where it's at, but erring on the side of love and kindness and compassion and intimacy. That word of intimacy is such a key. And speaking of the gene keys, I have that gene key in my Venus sequence. It's gene key 59. And it comes with the shadow of dishonesty, which is what I was feeling by going, I'm going to put this mask on and pretend I agree with this narrative, which I don't. So then I was lying to myself and everyone I was about to come into contact with. And so I thought, okay, intimacy, I'm going to say how I feel right across my face. And I'm going to look at everyone as much as possible. And it was interesting how many people were avoiding eye contact. And I don't think it's because I had anything written. It was like before they even had a chance to look at me. Like, it's easier for a lot of us to kind of put on blinders right now and not connect with anyone, whether we think they're on the same side as we are right now. It's very polarized, and like letting our differences aside and somehow having this new mask mandate is creating a level playing field, whether we want it to be or not. And so we have to find other ways to show and express and emanate that, okay, I can play this game, but it's not my truth. And I'm going to let that be known by looking at you and showing you that I'm smiling behind this, using my eyes, and using my heart center and my energy field. So those are some of the thoughts that are right at the top of my mind about, meeting that fear vibration and how we can best navigate that. I'd love to hear your thoughts and feelings on that.
Yeah, well, I think one thing is to acknowledge just all these coping strategies that many people have implemented over the years of, just get through it, kind of a bulldoze sort of strategy, right? Like, we'll get through this, just put the mask on, just get through it. We'll get beyond, like a kind of a really kind of forceful approach, right? And that's kind of maybe their MO in life, or just, and so for those of us who have really prioritized getting to know our hearts, our bodies, our minds, coming into this frequency of love, knowing ourselves, embracing beauty, developing our gifts, coming together, cultivating intimacy, healing traumas, and even addressing ancestral wounding, and just becoming greater, becoming curious about who we are and who we're becoming, and the process of evolution. Like those of us really in that, yeah, it's like we're on a certain journey or arc of experience, right? So we desire more of that. So then when we're met with this kind of wall of just, I can't just like do this. I can't just go against my own best interests for the sake of pleasing another. Like how many of us have worked for years to undo pleasing tendencies when we would violate our own yes and no to please another, or temporarily give up what we knew was right and compromise, and which got us caught in the shadows, right? So I guess if I were to synthesize what I'm saying a little more, I would just to recognize all the different coping strategies humanity has used throughout time, and developing a capacity to acknowledge that they exist, and to acknowledge where we are and what we've chosen to cultivate within ourselves, and what we can bring to relationships, and what we can bring to those moments, whoever we're interacting with. And yeah, especially when I'm in the forest and I see someone on their own walking with a mask on, it really just twists my guts. And because because I love nature and the elements so much, and that air and the water's moving and these huge trees, like it's pure majesty, that's one of my gene keys. And beauty, it's just stunning. So it's almost like being cut off from that, or someone cutting them off from that. So it takes a lot in me to just really move the whatever arises in my guts, and just like not allow it to spin mentally, but just really breathe and move that energy through my body. So I think for many of us, it's just finding our way and to alchemy, to transformation, transmutation, to working with what sensations arise in our body, which are natural. When we see things that don't make sense or don't align with truth, it's natural for those to rise. And then how can we alchemize that through our body, through our breath, and just keep finding our way? Yeah, being creative while acknowledging these social agreements, to be a part of the society.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And, I think a pattern that I'm seeing for a lot of people, and I feel like I got into this pattern a little bit early on in this whole global pandemic situation. It's like once you start watching the information roll in, it's hard to step off that hamster wheel. And something that's been coming up in conversation here in our home, with family and friends, is like being mindful of what we're consuming, not just the food that we're putting in our mouths, but what are we looking at? What are we listening to? What vibrations are we exposing our being to? What are we surrounding ourselves in, and how can we do better for ourselves? And a lot of people think that means like, oh, then just go and stick your head in the sand. But there's so much spectrum in between, diving completely into every single speck of information and all the things that are being spewed about as fact, and then hiding completely. I don't think either one's the solution. I think it's really good to know what's going on in the world around us outside of our own sacred space and comfy homes. But honestly, I think limiting anything that has a vibration of fear to like 5% of my daily intake is enough for me. Reading one news article, one statistics update, one new mandate order, whatever it is, and it's been hard for me because I've had a lot of friends who I'd say are paying attention and asking really critical questions. And I'm grateful for those people in my life. And I have felt an absolute overload of information coming in through messages and emails and texts and phone calls and video chats and all these things where it's just way too much. And so it's up to me in my own personal discernment to say thank you, I need a break from these things for now, or thank you, but that topic doesn't interest me, or finding the grace to step aside from that pathway. And who knows, it could lead by example and encourage others to take a few steps back, and really sink into a space of calmness and creativity and love and intimacy and all those things that feel really good. Because even though that those hits of whatever the brain chemicals are, that and the cortisol and the everything that gets us all hyped up and gets us all fired up, like, sure, anyone who loves extreme sports, those adrenaline rushes, right? It's like, it's addictive. It becomes a thing that we seek. And it's no different watching videos of whatever our favorite conspiracy leaders are, or even watching our prime minister or the health leaders of this country. It all does the same thing for me. It's information, but is it truth for me? And it's like we need to get out a sifter and sift through everything and try to only let the grains of love and compassion and optimism come through, like at a way greater scale than anything that's creating fear or separation, because that's not the direction I want to see my life go in. That's not the hope that I have for our species. As you said at the beginning, I really feel hopeful that after all the dust settles, we'll be coming through this as a much greater collective version of our human consciousness and heart-centered awareness. It feels like we're far from that right now, I'll be honest, but I hold the hope that there are miracles beneath the mess here.
Yeah, that things can wake up, from somewhere deep in there, that deep spark that in any moment, as we know, the journey of awakening or becoming aware, it can just be a moment that is so transformative that just really alters our perspective. And if anything, given that what we've known as society is changing so much, there is space for new visioning. But yet we can't expect ourselves to go into that frequency because it is more a time of deconstruction, it feels, rather than true building. But what we can build right now is internal, emotional, energetic, through our hearts. And how do we cultivate that frequency of love? Yeah, because as you said, it's so easy to get caught in either wanting to share information or question information just because it assaults our integrity. We just want to correct it, but yet it's kind of a minefield, and then we get caught in that frequency of war or battle that's so prevalent right now. And then it leads to, that separation, division. So even if someone's bringing in valid information, the moment that frequency of fear and anger hooks on that information, it spirals it. And then even if it's quote truth, it's not supporting us to become more present, aware, engaged in our relationships, breathing fully and doing everything we can to take care of ourselves and those in our life, and doing our work and stepping into greater service and everything we desire. It can prevent that. So it does feel like such a time to really take a moment, and continuously check in, like, where is my attention, where is my focus, is this supporting me to step into greater love, wisdom, truth, clarity, beauty, etc., or is this actually preventing me from doing that? Because we just can start to track the differences. Our body is such a great meter of that, as it were, right? Because when things are more, have that frequency of anger and fear, things get faster and more agitated. Like adrenaline sports, it's like, I want more, I need to consume more, I need to understand more, I need to get this, I need to get underneath this, underneath that, and underneath that. And it's just so there's so much friction. And so it's recognizing where we start to spin our wheels, even in the name of seeking greater information or trying to undo the confusion we feel or the angst we feel, knowing that this is kind of a long game. And it does feel like it's quite the process. Whatever this is, however we perceive what's happening in the world, does really feel like it's not something that's easy to be resolved. And there's a lot of uncertainty. And uncertainty is rarely comfortable for a physical human. the unknown and not getting to plan anything that's like, well, I know this is going to happen in 5 months. Like there's just so much that feels like sand underneath our feet and kind of a quicksand variety. And so we just breathe, acknowledge where we're at and that we're here, and yeah, do our best to cultivate our inner wellness so we can come together from that frequency of love and get to go beyond that shadow play. Yeah. Is there anything else you wanted to name on this theme or anything, Kristen, for today?
Yeah, I just had one last thought. It's making me giggle a little bit. I've really been trying to find the humor in as many things as possible lately, because it's really been helping me to shift my, my body's chemistry into a place that feels healthier. So what just came to my mind listening to your sharing was, I believe I heard this in the book A New Earth many years back, whenever that came out, Eckhart Tolle's book. And he said, if you think you're enlightened, go spend a weekend with your family. Right. And I think this is like next level for anyone who's been on a spiritual path and considers themselves an awakened or awakening person who's, holding a vibration of love and peace. And it's like, yeah, okay, hanging out with your family is one thing. You can go see them and then you can leave. But try hanging out in an entire world of human beings who are mostly panicking and afraid and acting irrationally and not thinking clearly, and needing the people who have the skills and tools to hold a space of love and peace and calm. Like, it's an endurance test, like what you just said. There's not an end in sight. We can't even plan anything really right now. And it's not funny, but sometimes I find that it's funny because I'm only looking at my own reality, right? It's like, I find my mind going, and I like get these moments of like, I'm like trying to fight what is, and like, that's just futile. It's not going to help. And so it's just like, okay, this message is for all of us, anyone who's listening to this, right? We all would consider ourselves spiritual beings having a human experience. And so this is like the ultimate test. You can't make this stuff up. This is like, wow, we are all in this. It's so important to share and stay connected and to acknowledge that this is hard. This is like, I've had some big challenges in my life, but I've never had one that looks like it could go on for a very long time. Usually things are, we are able to face them and work through them in chunks. And at some point those things phase away and they're a part of a distant memory. Well, I think this will be someday, but it's like, wow, there's just a giant no end game in sight, And so being present in every moment, in every hour of the day, and being 100% available for what's showing up in front of us right now is the most wonderful way through this. It reminds me of sitting in a sweat lodge or in any kind of ceremony where it's not comfortable. It is not comfortable. And your mind says, will I die here? Like, is this crazy? And the only thing that saves you is surrendering into the moment, letting go of that grip, letting go of the tightness, letting go of thinking you need to be in control of this moment, and just loving what is. That's like such a fluffy thing to say right now, but it's like, it's literally how I'm living my life and how I'm getting through some of these days that feel really hard. Yeah, so I just want to say congratulations to all of us who are living through this right now. This is something worth celebrating, and I really do feel like we're going to make it through this. And that the celebration on the other end is going to be like nothing we could have ever imagined. Just like this time is like so bonkers. We could have never imagined this becoming our collective reality. And imagine the exact polar opposite of the freedom and celebration and ecstatic beauty and love that will be coming when this fear vibration is closed like a chapter of a book. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, so definitely welcoming that. And we can really realize that within ourselves and perhaps in some close relationships, that frequency of that gift really coming alive. So it is possible even now we can touch into that city of celebration and harmony and beauty and all of them and resource ourselves through this time and become really curious about how that can manifest in our lives one day at a more collective level. So we all welcome that, and yeah, celebrating each of you who are watching this, because we are moving through this time, and we're invited every day to do our work and really show up and love and cultivate anything beautiful within us, and find that in the world too, and in people's eyes, and in that one person who will wink, or you could tell they're smiling. And yeah, so we will find the way through and invite our creativity and resilience to carry us. And thank you everyone for listening, and we'll be back with another episode soon.